Mr. Ambassador, after the address of President Obama last night, could you describe the new strategy towards Afghanistan in one sentence?
Well, I think that what the President made clear is that the strategy continues to be disrupt, dismantle, and eliminate al-Qaeda as a threat to world security. What the President has changed is he's decided that we need additional resources to accomplish this objective and accomplish this strategy. And he has made it clear that this is not open-ended. We're not going to stay there forever. That if we are successful, we put the right number of troops and civilian support in place today, we can build the Afghani capability, military and civilian, to withstand future threats, and then we will be able to successfully withdraw.
If you had to describe the difference between the strategies of President Bush and President Obama, what would it be? Is it the timeline to retreat?
Well, I wouldn't call it retreat. I think that the biggest difference is that President Bush did not focus on Afghanistan. His attention was directed to Iraq. President Obama consistently from the beginning and even during the campaign said that Afghanistan is the source of the problem, not Iraq. And so President Obama has shifted the attention to Afghanistan where it belongs. It's Afghanistan that was the source of the 9/11 attacks, not Iraq. And so that's where the focus ought to be.
It's worth mentioning that President Obama didn't even mention the word terrorist one single time in his speech. Why so?
Well, I think he did mention the extremism. Al-Qaeda is a violent extremist group. You can call it a terrorist group. You can call it violent extremism. I think what the President likes to point out is that these extremists are bringing their, they export their violent extremism all over the world. They are defiling Islam, and because they kill innocents in the name of Islam, which is an insult to Islam. And so he does not use that kind of terminology as easily as President Bush did. He calls it the way it really is, which is this is a source of violent extremism that the world needs to address.
President Bush often mentioned the war against terrorism. Mm-hmm. Is this a big difference between him and President Obama, that President Obama doesn't call it the war on terrorism?
Well, that is a difference. We don't call it that because, terrorism is this amorphous thing. How do you declare war against a tactic, against a way of, the way your enemies attack you? What we're really fighting is extremism, where people want to violently export their, kill innocents and that sort of thing outside, in other countries. We've experienced, it is terrorism in a way, but how we fight it is a little bit differently. One of the things we focus on is making sure that the people of Afghanistan understand that we are there to help them, and we want them to help us stand up and defeat this enemy, which is a common enemy.
The war in Afghanistan is going on since 8 years, and there is little success. I mean, the Taliban are not in power anymore, but this was achieved in a relatively short time. And since that time, there is no success inside. The Taliban today are stronger than they were years ago. So isn't there the big danger that the United States kind of face a new Vietnam?
Well, there's a big difference. In Vietnam, there was a nationalist movement that the United States was facing. We don't have that in Afghanistan. The Afghani people are on our side in this fight. So that there's a critical difference there. The problem in Afghanistan is that we took our eye off the ball and went after Iraq, when we should have stayed focused on Afghanistan and finished the job. What the President is saying is, now is the time to finish this job once and for all.
And you think it can be done?
Yes, absolutely. His military advisors have advised him. He's assessed it. We have a strategy. The strategy involves increasing our troop levels and our civilian support to help the Afghani people build their own institutions, both security-wise, police-wise, institutions of government, help them develop their agricultural sector so that they can withstand the Taliban going forward. And it becomes, the burden shifts to them as time goes forward. And the President has said we will start to withdraw our troops in 2011 because we have a clear objective that this is how long it will take us to help them step up, and then we start to withdraw just as we are withdrawing from Iraq. Well, again, it's the Afghanis that need to be successful in Afghanistan. And so this strategy focuses on training the Afghanis to stand up for themselves, help them to develop both the security structures and the civilian structures to have a successful government and take care of their people, to help their economy develop a stronger agricultural economy that's not based on growing poppies. If we do this successfully, we can pull down our troops, we can leave, knowing that the Afghanis can now withstand these threats themselves. Well, I think the last election the flaws in that election demonstrate the need for our support. There's no question the job is not finished. There's a process of moving towards democracy, and it's not an easy process, and it can be messy. But President Karzai was elected in a way that followed their constitution, and he has promised to govern in a way that starts to reduce the corruption in his government, and we have to help him in that regard and help the Afghani people in that regard. Nobody ever said this was easy, but if you keep making progress, you can eventually get to the point where there's some semblance of democracy and some ability for the Afghani people to govern themselves. It's easy for us, when we're used to a perfectly functioning democracy, to complain and say, well, it was flawed in this way and flawed in that way. But it is it's the election that the Afghani people had, and as time goes on, one would hope that the Afghani people will develop the structures to have greater democracy and eliminate some of these flaws in their democratic system. But it is the government we have, and we have to work with it. It does correspond to their constitution. We cannot say that he was installed by coup. He was elected, regardless of the fact that there were flaws in the election. And I think you have to make the best of that situation and move forward.
Let me get back to the address of President Obama last night. He's going to send 30,000 more troops to Afghanistan. Will that be enough?
Well, the president believes it will be enough, and he has looked at all the evidence. He's talked to all the military advisors. He's talked to our civilians in place. The president's someone who takes in his information from a multitude of sources, gels it down, and then comes at the best decision. Who's to say if the correct number is 30,000 or 25,000 or 35,000? But our military believes that this will be successful, and we believe that as long as this effort continues as an international engagement, as it has been, we will ultimately be successful.